point, though, he wasn't really speaking. He was kind of like meeting the society where they were, and I'm gonna have to side with George on this one, only because, all right, so women can't be teachers. That's in the Bible. I think that can be confusing because it doesn't give more. Well, because of the society we live in today, for you futuristic people, don't hold back women from ministry. You look at people in our church that I wouldn't be half the Christian I was today without them. Like looking at them and how passionate they are and knowledgeable they are in the Bible, it inspires me. So I think a lot of people today still hold on to that as gospel and say women should not be priests or pastors, and to me that is, why? God never really said that. Paul said that.
Exactly. Well, that's my point. What if that wasn't made into canon?
Yeah.
What if that didn't get the vote?
It's actually not in canon, though. For example,
Paul's books?
No. What I'm saying is as law. If you look at the Eastern Orthodox Church, for example, people are like, well, how come the teachers are always male across the higher grades of the Orthodox Church? Somebody posed that question to them, and they said, to be honest, it's just cultural. We have no teaching against it. Technically, a woman could step up and be a teacher. They just haven't. So, I mean, honestly,
I know in our denomination it's not allowed.
They even in the oldest Christian denomination, they just simply said it's just been culture. Yeah.
What would happen if somebody made the attempt to?
Honestly, I don't think they'd be opposed. In fact, if you look at some of the prominent people in the Orthodox Church who are creating great literature and videos, like what's her name? Frederica Matthew Green. She's created numerous books and she teaches full courses. Obviously, female, because her name's Frederica. So,
right.
And she's a great teacher in the Orthodox Church.
You just can't be a senior.
She's doing a great service to it, and that's in an area where traditionally that has been filled by males, but they fully said it's just simply because it's called a cultural thing. There's no mandate against it.
Yeah. But I know in our church there is a mandate against it. You can't even be an elder as female.
Can't be an elder.
Yeah. Right. You can be on the board to elect an elder, though.
That's the Western idea, taking it too far again.
Agreed.
It's dispensational.
So that's where we
the damn key word.
Right, and that's where we
there's Gumby on the same page.
We make mistakes that push people away and make people question what shouldn't be there. Yeah, I think that those are the sins of the past that are still plaguing us today.
Yeah, and it's unfair because I think it pits a lot of pastors who feel like, man, there should be women who are doing my job, and I wish they could be. Yeah. A lot of them I know personally firsthand that wish that was the case. Yeah. And I think it's until they start speaking up, a woman's voice won't get heard in that area.
My only thing is, it would have to be. It could be tough because women could kind of push a lot of men to their lazy habits. So I do think maybe men need to step up a little bit and be those leaders in the church. And I think some of this helps support that a little bit. Like sort of like a crutch. Not saying that it should be, but maybe it is a blessing in disguise in a way. Just kind of shooting from both sides of the fence.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about our stake on the leadership, though.
No, well, I'm not personally, but I am worried about our stake as men. And when I look around at other fathers that are failing, at standards of raising family because they're so submissive.
If I'm looking at organized religion, I feel like we're the last organization, or whatever we want to call it, construct in human life that's catching up to that. Because they're, I sympathize with the hashtag me, or women empowerment or feminist movement and all that. But there are a lot of women in high places.
Oh, no doubt.
Look at Oprah.
No doubt. Exactly.
Powerful.
Like an Oprah.
Influential.
Yeah.
The presidency doesn't even, matter to her. it's like, yeah, that's just not for me.
She could pretty much tell the president.
But you know
what?
what?
To do,
Yeah. I mean, the fact that she could even just like wave it off like that. You know what I mean? Look at the lady from I think it's Amazon. I know not Jeff Bezos. I know he owns it, but there's the woman under him pretty much runs the ship.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many other powerful women out there. Pepsi, the woman's a CEO.
The CEO of Key is a woman.
Yahoo, right? Yahoo's ran by
Most powerful woman banker in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marissa Mayer. She runs Yahoo.
So if we're looking at this outside of religion, now we come to religion, and it's not like that. I feel like we're kind of catching up to the times, so to speak. You know, we don't want to quite relinquish that just yet.
At least if you're denominational.
Yeah. But not even in the Orthodox Church. I don't know any Orthodox women who.
Once again, there are several popping up. Frederica Matthew Greens is one of them.
A priest.
She's chosen not to go into ministry itself. She's on the teaching end of it, and she teaches full courses and writes books. And honestly, she's probably far more influential in her current position. Like, I don't even know who her husband is, but I know who she is.
That's true. You know what? That's a good point. You know what? That's a great point, actually, because, you know, when my wife and I have this conversation, I'm like, Jen, oh, I shouldn't have said her name. I'll edit that out. There was no Jen here.
Jen who?
You know, at some point, I'm like, why even fight so hard to rehabilitate something you don't believe in? You know? And maybe that's a question that might feel relevant to you. Why even fight so hard to rehabilitate that?
Yeah.
You know, to change it to what end?
Right.
You know what I mean? How far are you going to keep saying that? And what is equal?
Yeah.
What does equal look like for women?
I mean, the only reason why I know who her husband is because she talked about him.
I mean, if I, you know, in terms of woman power, if I were to have this talk with Oprah, I mean, I don't know. She would probably look at me like, "What are you talking about, equal? Like, get out of my face." Like, I didn't schedule you in. All right. You know, so, I mean, at what point do women in the church want to keep fighting this to rehabilitate something that was always patriarchal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
It's good. It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody's assuming you're speaking for every situation.
Yeah,
every person.
yeah.
I mean, there are very faithful people in our church who know that they could never be a leader, but they're leaders in so many other ways, and it's not offensive to them. So that's just not a battle they're willing to carry that flag for, and I think that's
true.
Respectable.
But I do know a handful of women, and I would not say names out of respect for their privacy, who was blindsided by the fact that they couldn't get the same certificate at the end of a certain program that people were going to get because she was female. She didn't know that till it was close to the end of the program.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. That's a little
archaic.
Yeah. And it hurt.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, I can
It
imagine.
legitimately hurts. You know, because of Paul's sayings.
So that's what I asked. Like, here at this table, what do we do about this? So we learn, we're part of this church. We go, I wasn't aware of this, you know. So that's something I think we should probably mention. At that point, we can advocate, you know, for gender equality in this case, you know, something I believe in. So do we just say, oh, it sucks for you, sorry to hear about your luck?
No, I mean,
Or do we actually talk
I think it should be addressed.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
Meeting,
and in
committee,
this
you know,
person's defense,
addressed.
she has no problem speaking up for herself. She just felt like, oh wow, I wish that was made known to me at the beginning.
Yeah. At
That
least,
kind of thing.
hopefully she's not feeling like she's alone.
But I guess my question again to women is overall in the big picture, how far do you want to go to rehabilitate something that's not going to change?
True, and we
Hasn't
appreciate
changed in 2,000 years.
and we encourage
Well, hold on. Let's back that up a second. All right, we have a very young denomination, so
Yeah.
Let's say 50 years. Let's say 50, 60 years.
yeah. Well, I mean, arguably the CMA's been around for what, maybe 100 years. Yeah,
fair.
ish.
About 100 years.
1880s, I think it started, right?
18,
So
90.
we're really not talking about 2,000 years here. We're really talking about maybe 100 years in this. So
I think these are very inclusive topics, and we encourage our listeners to add comments to our blog or our social channels
absolutely,
as well.
absolutely. Or our Facebook page, or comment in our Twitter feed. So yeah, definitely. Instagram, we'll post stuff. So, let's enter into a topic that George loves:
Love it.
homosexuality in the church. Can of worms. Go.
What was I thought? What was my exact question? I thought I had a pretty good question though.
You had a fairly good question. It involved.
Fabric.
It was a good question, but here's the problem with that question. So, you said people observing different fabrics for their clothing, yet not acknowledging gays in church. However, that's in the Levitical laws, and those are no longer acknowledged by Christians. So,
Wait, say it again. You lost
The-
me.
well, the
I
specific.
feel like the fabric piece, right? Okay, just to
Yeah,
clarify
that's
this, right?
that's a
The
Levitical
man shouldn't
law.
lay with another man, and then like 2 paragraphs later, it talks about how we should also not wear clothes that are 2 different fabrics, right?
Right, like jeans and a
I don't know. Either way, it's
polyester
dumb.
shirt.
Either way,
Right,
it's
right.
dumb. Stupid. Whoever wrote that. So why are we all up in arms about homosexuality, but we're not like trying to make laws to prevent people from selling shirts with 2 different fabrics on them?
So,
Like, why? They're 2 paragraphs
it's
from
a-
each other. Why are we all fired up about one?
It's a
And
great
we're-
question.
we're-
It's a
we're
great
like,
question.
fair.
But I unless you were an ultra Orthodox Jew, or in the Old
It
Testament.
was in the Bible you gave me.
Yeah, but that's also Old Testament. That's never brought up from the New Covenant forward because we don't abide by the Old Covenant. So different fabrics are not even a consideration for Christians. That's a Jewish thing, not a Christian thing.
Yeah.
So
Could you explain it? You're a dad. You got young kids.
So-
Yeah.
unless you're a
I gotta
Talmudic,
learn this quick.
yeah, unless you're a Talmudic Jew, this does not apply to you. See, it even rhymes. So you can remember that next time. Unless you're a
You do
Talmudic
Manic device
Jew,
for me?
it does not apply to you. So-
Isn't that a bumper sticker? I've seen it.
We'll have those for sale next week.
No, that's gonna be Gumpy's sticker on
Okay,
our
so now
website.
you got the second can of worms to
So,
attack.
okay, so now we're going to branch out into homosexuality in the Christian church. We're going to make this kind of brief because this could easily be a 2-hour show on this.
Right.
I think it's a
So-
2-hour show. It's planned, isn't it?
What's that?
I think we have it planned, don't we?
We do in the future. So we're going to make this one kind of sort of brief. In Catholicism, they did kind of address this. So if you go in, it says right here, in 1980, a Roman Catholic priest, Father John Harvey, along with Franciscans, Friar Benedict Groeschel, CFR, formed the Courage Apostolate for people who wanted to live a Catholic, spiritual, chaste life in fellowship, truth, and love, but had same-sex attractions. The Courage website reports that over 1,500 persons are involved in 111 chapters around the world. The chapters are self-supporting and exist with the permission of the diocesan bishop. The salutary aim of the apostolic is to help individuals gain a greater understanding and appreciation of the Church's teaching, especially in the area of chastity. The website lists 5 goals that were created by the founding members that are read at the start of each meeting. Each member is called to practice in daily life. They are 1. Chastity. Live chaste lives in accordance with the Roman Catholic Church's teaching on homosexuality. 2. Prayer and dedication. 3. Fellowship. 4. Support. And 5. Good example. I didn't read all of the explanations for each one, but more or less each one of those examples is to live a good Catholic chaste life so that way you don't fall into temptation and live outside the bounds that the Roman Catholic Church has allotted for people individually. Go.
Me just right after all that, just
yeah,
going
go,
Yeah,
in,
George,
just
go,
going in.
go, go, go.
Just go, go. Go. I I don't know. Again, a lot to digest. I'm just gonna go for it and just say they're not hurting anybody. Let them get married. They're not hurting
Did you
anybody.
just miss everything I just read?
That's not true, though. I know. Like, what you're trying to do is you're making it sound like they're trying to head in that direction, but that's not where we're at right now.
No, what they're doing on this is trying to live very competent, sacramental lives in holy fellowship with God, more or less living in the secular world as monks and nuns of the Christian church.
So, what you're saying is that
They feel they've
these
been
groups of gays are living these secular lives as monks and whatever in the church.
they've chose in their lives to live a higher calling in their life rather than just simply submit themselves to a standard secular lifestyle. They've chosen.
I don't know what's there for me to debate there.
They've
Good for them.
chosen to rise above their individual passions to try to submit to a higher calling.
Oh. So, okay. So they're trying to suppress what they're feeling so they can live a more Catholic lifestyle. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Yeah, I disagree. Let them be them. Let love is love, man. But they're not hurting anybody,
Not saying they are.
right?
So the question is this. Okay, so if you look at is- you're talking about marriage. So you can either look at it from a secular point of view, where marriage through a government, or marriage through a church. Church standard says can't, and the church should be allowed to say no. However, with the government is already
They got their hands in there and got it all dirty.
they got it all dirty,
I
but
agree
they
with
can
you
say
there.
but they say that if the government says you can get married, so you can go to the justice of peace and get married, and it's legal tender. Right?
Right?
But it's not acknowledged by the church.
Right?
And why should it? Because they're not a member of the church anyways.
When you come at it from that, I get what you're saying. And one, I kind of always had this thought in the back of my mind that, like, really the government should just stay out of marriage anyway. But,
Agree.
and that way everyone could just, right? Then we could all be happy getting married underneath our own terms. Yeah, I don't know. I think I disagree with the church. I think gays should be allowed to get married. And again, I'm just going back where I'm looking at, by allowing that, we're just allowing more love. No one's getting hurt. No one's getting hurt. So I think it should be allowed. And I think it's just something I disagree with the church about, I guess.
Okay.
No one's getting hurt.
Yeah, I
guess-
think there's a chance that people can not fulfill their potential. So putting certain guidelines on my life helps me get more out of me than not having these guidelines, having these rules and regulations. So I can't speak, because I have certain beliefs. So I take what the Bible goes, and I kind of do my best as a human to understand maybe what God's going for here. But I do know a lot of homosexual couples who aren't happy. And I know marriage didn't give me happiness. Am I happy with my spouse? Yes, but it's not because of that. And when I read Paul, it does give me food for thought to say, I was never really taught that not having marriage was an option. I do think this forces us to think, what are the options? If I'm attracted to the same sex, does it absolutely mean I have to, try to pursue this? No, not necessarily. There could be another calling. If I'm attracted to, and not to say this is it, but there are certain things where you have to say, no, my attraction's immoral, or my attraction is not a good thing. And I mean, I'm attracted to a lot of stuff, and I shouldn't partake in it all. And so at that point, there is a line somewhere that has to be drawn.
Right? I just don't think it's I don't think it has to be with gender. I agree. A line has to be drawn somewhere, and I think we could probably find similar things we agree on, like age, right? And that's how that's changed over time or whatever. But again, I don't know. I just when I talk about homosexuality in the Bible, it's not hurting anybody. There's not no one's getting hurt. It's not, those homosexual couples do not affect us in any other way. We're just allowing them to be happy, and we're allowing them to have, a certain, we're letting their love be represented through marriage, and I think that's fine. I don't know. I just disagree by not allowing them.
What if let's use attention deficit disorder?
Okay.
It's a very common thing now, and I think a lot of us 40 and up probably had it, and it just wasn't a thing. If you look at a lot of this, and they're so different, so you can't take one and say it's the same. But it's like it's almost a superpower in certain areas where you can hyper focus on one thing and you can tune everything else out, and that's one form of this attention deficit disorder. Well, you give someone a drug and take that away from them, and now they're more normal, so the parents can now understand and work with the child better. But you're almost taking this ability that they were created with away. So for me, I always looked at, Jesus spoke about, what's it called? The servants that were men that worked with, like, royal women.
Oh, eunuchs.
Eunuchs.
So Jesus used the term eunuchs. Well, I always thought, like, well, what if that is homosexual men at that point? Because he says God creates eunuchs. Well, God doesn't create a eunuch literally, but if you're not interested in a woman, but yet you have this 40% more muscle mass just because you're a man, you can be more protective. You're safer around women. What if there is a superpower? Because I get stupid around attractive women. Other people wouldn't. So I just say I can't say that, hey, your thought of happiness will actually get you to your potential. You might not know what. I don't know what will make me happy. But if I seek God and trust God, potentially I'll be even more happier than I could even imagine. So that's my only caution there. I don't have a rigid stance.
Add something to that, and I don't want to get off the subject, but when you mentioned eunuchs, I thought eunuchs was males that were castrated.
Yeah, exactly. So God didn't castrate someone, but
Right.
That's actually a misconception.
okay.
Okay.
Eunuchs are not always made eunuchs. Sometimes they were simply volunteers.
Oh, okay.
So, in fact, that's true. That's true. Eunuchs were not always made eunuchs.
You may be right. I don't know any man.
I can pull up historical context for that.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
Yeah, not us.
Eunuchs were not always physically made to be eunuchs. Sometimes they were just simply people who were allotted by the king to be over specific, like, say, harems and stuff like that. It does not mean that they were castrated.
And in addition to fast forwarding to modern day slavery, for those who worked for the slaves who worked in the big house, that was another thing. They usually were castrated males. So.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that was just my 2 cents on that. Brought up.
Well, George, I agree with you. I don't think that the state should really have that much control over marriage in general.
Money.
Yeah, a lot of it is. There's so many other factors than just one. I don't think you can. Going back to the issue of homosexuality, though, you can't legislate those types of things any more than we can legislate morality. You know what I mean?
That is tough.
I think you make a
just
good
can't
point.
legislate
Nobody's
those
hurting
things.
anybody.
But on the other hand, I don't understand why a homosexual couple would want to adhere to the same Christian values that they're trying to fight against.
Yeah,
Okay, so I
Because-
have a parlay into that, but go ahead.
that's exactly.
Yeah, it's baffling to me. Like, all right, that historically speaking, the Bible's against homosexuality, but yet you want to adhere to its rules of being married.
Right.
I
I think I'm fine with. I think I get it. I mean, I do think there is a desire that, again, like, right, I don't know, like, I'm the skeptic, the agnostic here, and I'm right, I'm abiding to your Christian rules of marriage. There's something to it. Like, I want to be.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I want to, I want to be. I want me and my partner to be represented. I want us to be binded and have that kind of confirmed unity. Like, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. Right, we're all married here, right? So.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. There's sometimes my wife and I talk, and we're like, man, I wish we were legally separated because we'd make more money in taxes.
Right.
But you couldn't visit her.
Now, right. What would change for our relationship if it was just a legal issue?
You're right.
Nothing.
I see what you're saying.
But to change a little bit from that, even Paul goes forth and says that it is better for a man spiritually to be by himself. And so if you can, if let's say if your wife passes away, it is easier for you as a man to dive into strict spirituality if you are by yourself. So, because then you can focus 100% on God's holiness and the life you are supposed to live, rather than trying to separate that between you and your wife. Because once you bring your wife into it, now you have to give her part of your attention.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not on the equally yoked,
right? And God's
like, worship me. Trying to teach each other.
Worship me. Worship me now.
God forbid. Well, you know what? This is where Paul and I separate in part ways.
And
I think it's okay for Christians to say, yeah, you know what? Some things with Paul I don't agree with.
Yeah.
And this is one issue where I'm like, you know what? You don't hold that much authority with me on marriage.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't confer that. All authority is conferred. There's no authority unless you confer it.
Yeah.
So I don't confer that authority because man never had a relationship. I don't know any historical document outside of the Bible that proves he had a relationship with a woman. And if he did, then I would apologize and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, this man's got some weight behind it. He knows he knows what it's like to be in a marriage. He knows what it's like to have struggles.
Right.
But I don't know that.
And that's where I think we should take the rest of this particular question and just simply submit this to an entire episode.
Yeah.
I feel like that, but I did have one thought that I was waiting my turn.
No, go ahead.
So I understand what you said, Gumby, but I would say Paul was accurate in his statement. I saw you nodding as well, and a lot of times I've never experienced anger outside of what can be created in marriage. And there are times where I'm distracted in my walk with God because of this obligation and family. Jesus didn't have kids, and sometimes I think that's why, God didn't put him with family. So I'm sorry for stealing any of the show's thunder, but I do think there's some merit to that, and as far as the divorce rates and numbers support that. Like, people aren't finding happiness in marriage. Maybe you find a spiritual companion, and a lot of others do. I don't think Paul's speaking for everybody.
I'm not speaking legally marriage. I'm not speaking about that.
I'm talking about committing, like what Paul's talking about. I don't think he was talking legally marriage.
Yeah.
I think he was saying, look, don't get distracted here. If you can focus on God, I think could be better. And, I do think this is a part of our option set as kids we're never introduced to. We're always saying, your guy, go, pick a girl, pick a cute girl, or go to the convenience store with the cute register worker. You're always kind of being pushed into this
where you find them.
I do agree with that.
But this was never an option growing up.
I do agree with that. I just think Paul's limited to his own experience. Yeah. He could only think that way.
It could be. But I would like to explore that because this is a great subject. So I would like to get an entire episode for this subject.
Yeah.
So, but I would like to say this though. The thought that the homosexual is excluded from churches is a huge myth.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's shoot over to Wikipedia here, and you'll see there are over 50 denominations that include LGBT rights in their churches. Right here it says in Wikipedia, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, affirming Christian denominations are Christian denominations that do not consider homosexual, transgender to be sins. So there's a large list, if you go to their Wikipedia page, of churches that affirm LGBT rights.
And
So
some large denominations.
huge.
It's true. I personally
So
know of a woman singer that I love her music, loved it for so long, a worship leader. I won't say her name, but it is public information. Well, I guess I can if it's public, right?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Vicky Beeching. For the longest time, she led worship. She put all these albums out. Great worship leader. We used a lot of her music in church. Out of the blue, she confessed that she was openly, gay. And then the evangelical outpour was like, well, what it was. What all we know is like, well, how can you do that? Sodom and Gomorrah. The Bible says this and that. So what are you going to do now, Vicky? What are you going to do now? You're obviously going to leave the church. And she's like, no, I actually want to be a theologian. She's going to school and she's still furthering it. And her particular denomination, I can't remember what it is. I want to say it's something like Methodist or Presbyterian.
Probably one of the ones on Wikipedia.
Okay. They're not kicking her out. You know what I mean? It's I hate to say it, but a lot of the times it comes from the evangelical West that is so quick to want to throw them under the bus.
So I mean, there is, and that's why we're going to tackle this subject in a future
It's a
episode
big subject,
because
yeah.
it's a huge
Yeah.
subject, and I'm not going to completely condemn everybody. I'm not going to completely support anybody. I'm going to wait until a future episode when we can really cover this topic, as an entire topic for at least an hour, maybe two.
And
So
part
we
two
can-
is mixing fabrics, right?
We're gonna try that. We're gonna try that. I really think that cotton and polyester can blend well.
Cheap shot, man.
Don't do it, though.
Cheap shot.
Hey, it's your Bible, not mine. You're acting like I pulled it out of nowhere.
It's everybody's Bible, George.
Your book of life.
So we're gonna save the this topic for a future podcast, near future. I'd like to do it sooner than later.
Okay.
But we're gonna take this in soon as a full podcast by itself. We are going to head to his last question, and this goes to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh boy. Send it on a high note, huh?
I want to remind you of something you already know very well. The Lord who once saved a people out of Egypt later destroyed those who didn't maintain their faith. I remind you, too, of the angels who didn't keep their position of authority but deserted their own home. The Lord has kept them in eternal chains in the underworld until the judgment of the great day. In the same way, Sodom and Gomorrah and neighboring towns practiced immoral sexual relations and pursued other sexual urges. By undergoing the punishment of eternal fire, they serve as a warning. Now, that's from the book of Jude. All right, Jude is only one chapter, so I'm not going to tell you which chapter it is. But that is the book of Jude. And
This is in the Old Testament as well, right?
No, it's not. It's in the New
no,
Testament.
it's not. But the reason why I bring this up is because it is the source in the New Testament that connects the New Testament to the Old Testament. Okay? Everybody is always like, hey, how come God rained fire down on Sodom and Gomorrah? And that was a good question. This is why I saved this for last, because this one's a little complicated.
Okay.
And you're like, you had two questions on this one. You said, how come they wanted to do away with the city because of quote-unquote homosexuality? And how come, because of children and such, in that city could God rain fire down upon it?
Yeah, and I have more
Okay.
questions on that. Two, why did he send the angels down to investigate when he already knows he's God?
Okay.
Why did they want to give up his daughter to the? Remember, he's like, "Don't kill these angels. Here, take my daughter."
I hate to say it, but that's the easiest part of the question. Go ahead.
And then I just think it's ridiculous. For no reason, the mom turns around and turns to salt.
Okay. So let's start with the daughters. Okay. So on the daughter's side of it, that has nothing to do with God. That actually has to do with Semitic culture. That has nothing to do with God. In Semitic culture, if you brought guests under your wing, and remember, this has nothing to do with God. In Semitic culture, if you bring people under your wing, you have assigned yourself as their protector, even if that means putting your family members in danger because you have allotted yourself as the protector of the people you brought under your roof. That has nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with ancient Semitic culture. So, that is, I mean, unless you want to confront Semitic culture.
Which I will confront with you, because that one drives me crazy.
So,
But you can, because then that's being anti-Semitic, isn't it?
oh,
Uh-oh.
let's
I'm sorry.
let's tackle that in a different episode.
That's the third
too.
beer talking.
So that actually has nothing to do with any laws that God put forward at all. Okay, so that's the easiest part of that to solve.
George,
Okay.
I have such an issue with that one too, man.
I
all
agree.
good, bro.
I agree. I have 3 daughters, so trust me, I take huge issue with that. But we can't blame God or even the laws God set forward on that because none of that parlays into the culture that it comes from. That is strictly culture. So there's nothing we can pull into that.
Okay, well, just to sidechain that though. But does culture sometimes use God as the justification for their own laws?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Well. Anyway, yeah, there's certain parts of the United States where they claim. Anyway, let's move on.
Un-American.
Yeah, wait, take parts of Salt Lake City. Anyway, now, next part of that question. Pillar of salt. Once again, all we can say is that God gave all of them a warning. One of them disobeyed.
It's kind of arbitrary, ain't it?
See, once again, we don't know what caused it. We don't know what manner of fire God rained down. Was it some kind of weird particle accelerator? I don't know. But whatever he used, he told them not to turn around, and she did. I have a feeling it could be because of whatever kind of substance or technology, whatever he used, it probably had to do with whatever he sent down. I cannot verify that because I wasn't there.
Is this another
It doesn't
polemic
tell
thing?
No, this is just whatever he sent down, he told them not to look. I don't know why.
Just kind of, that's kind of just a weird arbitrary. Kind
One
of
lady
rule.
turned around and looked at it,
No, it's not.
and she turned it to a quote-unquote pillar of salt.
That's interesting.
I guess
Yeah.
what I'm asking is, outside the Bible, is there any other historical evidence? Did a huge volcano explode at that time?
No, what I will say is that there actually is. If you look at there actually is a place where they know Sodom and Gomorrah was.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, up on the hill, there still is a small pillar of salt in the shape of what's quote-unquote a human. So is that?
Stop.
And there is.
That wouldn't
Now-
last that long.
It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But according to legend, so
But again,
I won't
so-
say it is, but
but-
according to legend,
But why, if you're God, all powerful, why even make that? Why even play that game? Why even make that rule?
now we enter into the fun part. Okay, so
Thanks, George.
Hey, I'm gonna burn this place down, but don't look at it. I just want to test you out here.
once again, whatever technology we use, we don't know. But let's go into the reason why that happened. Okay, this is the far more interesting part.
Right.
Far more interesting part. So, if you go to the Genesis 6 account, okay, it says that there were sons of God, okay, that mixed with the daughters of men, and they created these Nephilim giants because of the mixing of humans and angelic DNA. All right? Right in Genesis 6. What's interesting is it's not just the Bible talks about this. Quote, in Mesopotamian religion, divine beings known as Apkallu are a central focus of the Mesopotamian version of the flood story. The Apkallu were dispensers of divine knowledge to humanity. They get credited with teaching the people of Mesopotamia what they needed to know to establish human civilization. When the great gods decided humans were too noisy and irritating and needed to be wiped out, the Apkallu came with a plan to preserve the human knowledge humanity would need. They fathered children with human women. Sure enough, the plan worked, as the quasi-divine humans who survived the flood, also known as Apkallu, rebuilt civilization. They were the mighty ones whose wisdom and exploits led to the greatness of cities like Babylon. Those second-generation Apkallu were not only divine human hybrids, but they were also described as giants in the Mesopotamian epics. Gilgamesh is perhaps the most familiar example. He is called the Lord of the Apkallu in a cuneiform inscription on a small clay seal. So, across all of Mesopotamia, they have the knowledge of the Apkallu, or Watchers, as they're called inside the Bible. What's interesting is that if you get to Sodom and Gomorrah, and you go back to that verse I just showed you in Jude, it shows that it has nothing to do with homosexuality. It's because they knew that they were divine beings and they wanted to have sexual relations with them, showing that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah knew and probably were having sexual relations with the fallen angels, which means that their seed was already tainted, just as the Genesis giants had shown previously. So it's very interesting to show that this all took place and all coincides with the same stories. So the reason why God rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah was because of the demon seed and the human hybrids that were being caused during that time period.
Okay. So was there anybody? So no one was innocent.
God said, Yahweh said during that time period that if they could find innocent people, they would spare the city. If you go back and read the entire story, he said, if you could find 10 righteous, would you spare the city? And he said, I will spare the city. Nobody was found who was righteous. In other words, nobody's seed was found who was clean.
There was no babies that were like free of sin.
And they could have been hybrid.
And
They could have been part donkey.
They could have been part
dun, dun, dun.
donkey.
You never know, George.
Now, what's weird is what Gumby just said is actually not far-fetched. Because if you go back to the lost chapter of the Book of Enoch, the Book of the Giants, it does say that even the fowl and the animals of the air were corrupted and birthed monsters when the Watchers had relations with them and birthed monsters. So really what Gumby's saying actually coincides with the lore of that time.
I was thinking C.S. Lewis, yeah, for sure. It's, if I'm being honest, completely honest, the whole fallen angels, Watchers thing, and that being the reason why there is so much genocide, let's call it what it is. Any other time period, anything today, we'd call that genocide. It's true. It's the last piece that I'm clinging onto to not completely want to disregard all of the Old Testament and just say, you know what, I'm done with it. I am done with it. There's too much violence. There's too much land grabbing. There's too much. I guess it's not raping. I don't know what it is. Whatever we want to call it. There's just too much of that going on for me to not want to let it go. So the last thing that I cling to, that I want to cling to, maybe the question is, why do I want to cling to that? I don't know. Is that maybe there was some kind of crazy, evil, demonic seed that was trying to be wiped out? It's, it's pretty coincidental that your enemy surrounding you has that seed.
But in the defense of that idea, if you go back through the Old Testament, over and over again, the Hebrews would allow different tribes to merge with their tribes. And so that's where you can see God has mercy on those who abstained from the evils of the land. For example, there's an entire book, the book of Joshua. Right?
Yeah. No,
Joshua was what? He was not Hebrew, right? He was a Kenizzite, right? So
He's from the West Side.
yeah, he wasn't even. He's what?
Oh.
Yeah, he's West Side. No, he wasn't even a Hebrew. Okay, so his people were brought into the Hebrew tribe, and they were accepted as Hebrew and
Yeah.
became part of the Hebrews. So, if you look at the Old Testament, those who abstained from the evils of the land were brought into the Hebrew tribes and accepted as their own people. Because Joshua was considered one of the greatest of the heroes of old. In fact, Joshua means savior, right? Did you know that if you take Joshua and put it in the New Testament, Joshua is actually Jesus?
Jesus, yeah.
It's the same name, Yehoshua, same name.
I get it, and you know, I'm telling you, I'm Mulder from X-Files. I want to believe. I'm telling you that. I'm just saying, however, it's rather convenient for the people of the Old Testament as they're conquering lands. It really works out in their advantage if other people are not human. Therefore, you can take what you need and disregard what you don't need.
Yeah, but
Right.
the peoples in the Old Testament that are listed as cohabiting with the sons of God
I know.
are the ones that get wiped out. The ones that don't cohabit ultimately do get a lot of times brought in to the Hebrew people, and they end up getting absorbed as Hebrews. So, and in that aspect, they're not really losing their quote unquote culture. What they're doing is they're getting absorbed and becoming more part of that culture of the people who believe in righteousness. I am loving the new season of X-Files, by the way, but go ahead.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And again, it's a piece that I feel like I have to, from a morality standpoint, if I'm to find any sense of, I can only view it from my perspective. No matter how much I read about their culture and their context, I've only experienced my own context. So I could only view it from my own. As much as I try to understand it, I know that I won't get it. So the only way that I could cling and hang on to it, I feel like, is the whole Nephilim piece. If that falls apart, you won't even see me reading the Old Testament.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
And yet, I find that to be the intrinsic part of the Old Testament.
There you go. Right. It's one extreme to the other.
Yeah. I mean, and ironically,
where does George fit in?
Before Augustine, that was the thought process. And in the Eastern side, they never lost that. It's the Western view of theology that after Augustine, everybody accepted it was a quote-unquote Sethite view.
Yeah.
In our future podcast, I'm trying to bring Dr. Heiser, and we'll give a much more in-depth explanation into that.
I'm sure he'll whoop me up.
And Brian Godawa did a great job.
He did.
As well.
He did.
Yeah.
And these were issues I didn't bring up then out of respect and fairness to him, but during his talk, I certainly thought it.
Yeah.
And again, the reason why I still to this day it's a struggle for me is again because I don't feel like a lot of these things are just lost in their times. When I look at the same nation today that we call Israel, still fighting these same nations from thousands of years ago, I'm following their theology. You know what I mean? Do they still think these people all around them are not human? And if you did, let's just just follow my crazy thought here. If you did and they're not human, and if there's a part of them that you say, well, you know what, these people aren't part of our tribe, how much easier it is to just invade or to conquer or to drop bombs or whatever it is, and just to say, it's a lot easier when you have that kind of rationale.
Yeah.
It's
true.
That's my mindset.
Yeah. That's true.
I can see how that's definitely can be dangerous. I'm not one that totally subscribes to the Nephilim theory. Like I understand it.
Oh, it's a Sethite.
I believe. I'm just saying, like I guess I'm an easy sale for God, to where if he says he has something to do, and I'm like, all right, then let's do this. And so I don't think at that time Sodom and Gomorrah, I could be wrong. I don't think that was because the Jewish society wasn't even established yet at that point.
Good point.
So it wasn't the Jews that attacked Sodom and Gomorrah. It was God directly. And again, I just kind of go back to, was it a lesson, and who was it a lesson for? It's probably a lesson for most people. Like whether it happened or not, even isn't a point for me. It's more like, will you look back, at something, your sin, your drug of choice, which could paralyze, which could be detrimental, which could kill you, like I tell my kid to get out of the road, and he doesn't immediately listen to me, he's dead.
Yeah.
My dog, if I don't call my dog and he keeps looking at that other dog running across the street, he's dead.
Point well taken.
So I think there's a lot of things,
Yeah.
So I take that as more like something that will stand the test of time and teach every single generation. So read it, get what you need out of it, and then dive deeper. So I think it'll speak to the skeptic and the unskeptic alike if you let it.
I concur with that. I don't need necessarily any of the Old Testament to be historically proven for me to gain some kind of truth out of it. It's hard to find the truth out of it, is what I'm saying for me. And I think that's what, George is trying to say. It's for me to even get a nugget of morality of truth.
It's far easier in the New Testament.
It's hard. Yeah, okay, yeah. It's a lot easier in the New Testament. So the rub comes from the two melting together. It's like, wait a minute.
Man. The Old Testament saved me, honestly.
First person I met.
The New Testament, I'm sort of like, yeah, I get it. This is all, yeah, I love each other. Yeah, I mean, what's the question? But
Kumbaya.
to actually learn to question what I thought was right and to put God above me rather than, because my problem was and not to get on a soapbox, but I invented my own God and followed my own God. So it was like whatever I thought, which really in essence makes me God, right? If I'm saying, well, seems like gays are happy when they're married, so it must be right. I'm using my perception to judge right and wrong, and I realized, that's not the case.
I don't get, how do you, because I'd like to look at it through your point of view from the Old Testament. How did that save you? How do you get it?
Because it was so far out of my comfort zone as far as away from letting everybody be happy. It was so much like, oh my God, this God is way more drastic than I thought he was. I thought he was simply do good to everybody and everybody should be happy, and then everything's
scare you? Is that what you mean? Like it scared you into believing that?
Honestly, my first reaction was to walk away from Christianity. My first reaction.
Okay, that's where we part ways though, because I don't look at the Old Testament as Christianity.
Yeah,
and I have to get that in the open. Okay. I don't. And neither do Jews. And if a stream never rises higher than its source, then we need to consider that, because Orthodox Jews do not view the New Testament as any kind of sacred scripture like we do. So we put the two together. They don't.
Interesting.
But yet we pull their sources. So that's where the rub, I always feel, comes into play.
They don't. Orthodox Jews, which are what? What's the difference between a Jew and an Orthodox Jew?
Rabbinic Judaism as a whole do not...
they don't recognize the New Testament as anything scriptural.
The New Testament?
Yes.
They only recognize the Torah.
Well,
the Old Testament.
Depends on what
the Old
branch
Testament, yeah.
So why?
Judaism you're in.
So you're saying the stream never rises. So the Torah is the source.
Mm-hmm.
So we should, as Christians.
Wait, I'm not saying Torah is the source.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I'm saying if we consider the Torah is the source, then that's where I'm like, I don't really get how you could be saved from that, because when I look at Christianity, I'm looking at someone who follows the teachings of Christ. Christianity, like you follow the teachings and you live the way Christ taught us to live. That's my view of Christianity.
Oh. Yeah, see, I was the opposite. Like, honestly, I think the Old Testament speaks so much more to Christianity to me, because it was like everybody who God chose ended up not really
and
living a great life, and like I feel like that should be, we shouldn't really care about where we end up as much as we should care about our contributions that we make. We shouldn't be about, hey, this hurts, this doesn't hurt. We should be about, this is impactful, this isn't impactful. And to me, the change, it shook me up to where I didn't think I had to be happy. My happiness was no more the forefront. My owning 3 pairs of shoes was no longer my goal. So to me, I think it speaks so much, and I liked the consequence. I'm more of a consequential person that inspires me, and knowing that if I look back, that's it. I have to get this right as much as I can. I think that's inspiring. I think motivating.
Yeah. Does that make you a sadomasochist?
Am I a I'm submissive. That's the thing, man. I want him to be in control, honestly.
And by the way, rabbis are very offended by the word Old Testament.
Oh, huh?
Really?
Yes.
I can see that.
It's Torah.
Because Old Testament means
to them there is no New Testament.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I'm fine calling it Torah.
But again, that's where the whole conflicting part comes into play, because we view it all as we want to view it. I don't know why. Sometimes we want to view it all as some seamless ideological construct of things. And for me, when you look at the God of the Old Testament and you look at Jesus in the New Testament, what do you see?
Oh, like how brutal the old one was, and the new one's kind of more. Is that what you're getting at?
It's day and light, right?
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I would imagine most people could see that. It's conflicting.
Some people have seen that. That's where you get the demure, right? The demure inside the philosophical content would be the contrast between the rageful God and the sympathetic God, right? So that parlayed very heavily into Greek philosophy. But believe it or not, it does parlay nicely once you look at the rebellions across the New Testament, not just human, but divine. And when you look at those, I mean, they were heavily stated across, even the Torah, right? From Genesis to Deuteronomy, going into the Psalms, it does speak heavily of the divine rebellion against the Creator.
Heavily. I agree.
Because God created a spiritual family and a physical family, and there's rebellions on both sides. It's not his fault. He created on both sides. He created free will. They both had a chance to choose.
Yeah.
So
no, I do agree with that, and I see that point. I'll even take it a step further. I would almost feel like, it's a slam dunk. Look at the God of the Old Testament. Look at the God of the New Testament. Completely different, completely opposite. Until I find out that Christ is quoting the Old Testament
all the time,
and
when he's not quoting the Old Testament, he's quoting the Apocrypha.
He threw a jab at me and made me step back. So I don't really know what to do with the whole piece yet. All I know is that, man, I have some serious conflictions there.
You think just Jesus talked about it from a different angle, where the Old Testament is more like, don't do this or else, and Jesus is like, do this because. You know what I mean? They're saying kind of the same thing, just coming at it from different angles.
Yeah.
And with the 2,000-year difference in messaging, I feel like advertisements should change a little bit. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And so there was a different context then too. Like the slavery and everything was a whole different story. Like they weren't wandering around the desert anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had established territory. I mean, they were owned by things, but it's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a good podcast. We've probably not answered all of George's questions yet, which is good because we want future episodes of Skeptics Corner.
There we go. No problem. Well, I'll just continue reading and I'll just keep highlighting my questions.
Wait a minute. You're not ready to say the sinner's prayer?
Beautiful.
Repaint thinner.
I think we've tackled some good subject matter.
Yeah, for sure.
and we'll expand upon that in future episodes of not just Skeptics Corner, but our usual, episodes, and bringing good guests. But hey, it was fun. Mike?
You can find us on BibleOverBrews.com, social media, Twitter, Google Plus, all the networks, major networks we're out there. Definitely encourage your participation. I think we brought a lot to the table tonight, and we'd love to hear your input.
Kelvin?
Had a great time. It's good to be back, and I look forward to the future.
Steve?
Good night.
Adios. That's a racial slur.
That's racist.